Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the StoreHero podcast. This week, we are joined by the new CEO of Monster, Wiehan Britz. Wiehan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Delighted to be here, and it's going to be fun to unpack some of the challenges in the market, some of the growth opportunities, and just in covering some backstory stuff. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm usually used to a Scouse accent when I'm chatting to Magnet Monster, but where is this accent dialing in from today?
All the way from the African continent. So I am currently based in Cape Town, South Africa. So some people feel that it's a very flat accent. Some people love it. So I might be visiting the UK soon, so I'm going to be exposed to some of those accents as well. But yep, all the way from Cape Town, South Africa.
I actually visited probably nearly 8, 9 years ago at this point, but a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country. Just out of curiosity, what's the e-com landscape like in South Africa?
I mean, like any other country, there's a big monopoly happening within the landscape where, the typical Amazons, we do have a very big e-commerce platform or marketplace that takes the lion's share of, e-commerce activity and movements. So it's definitely a little tiny. I don't see it growing all that much, just because they are being dominated by the monopoly, the shareholder. But there's definitely some emerging stores that does sell locally, but on a very small scale. But it's not nearly as big as European markets or the States and so on.
Absolutely. So more kind of marketplace than DTC, I suppose, in its traditional sense.
Correct. And a lot of people obviously lean towards social selling. That's quite a big thing here, where people are selling through, Facebook marketplaces, Facebook communities. That's quite a big thing.
Big time, big time. Really interesting. I know the Facebook marketplace in itself, I don't think we think about it enough in Europe, but in other markets, it dominates how e-commerce is done. So it's interesting to kind of hear that back piece. In terms of, I suppose, we always like to dive in and actually understand who we're talking to today. Just to kind of, I suppose, understand, how did you get into e-commerce? I know you've quite the SEO background even prior to your email marketing days, but it'd be interesting to kind of just hear from yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So exactly like you've stated, I've played in the SEO field probably close to 15 years. I mean, focusing on B2B businesses, D2C businesses, small businesses. So that's pretty much where I've honed my skills in. And then over the years, I don't know how closely you are following the SEO industry, all the different, algorithm updates, introduced by Google, competition in the market. It just kind of it became very, very difficult to almost crack the code of growing organically. That in itself, as well as a lot of the times, brands, businesses, they unfortunately want to see, quick wins. They do want to see a quick ROI, from their SEO marketing spend. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen within the SEO field. So that kind of started grinding my gears a little bit, and I kind of got tired after 15 years. So I started shifting my focus into UX research and, conversion rate optimization type of practices, which is a very, very exciting field, just because you do tap into, buying psychology, how people buy, why they buy, certain blockers that they have that is preventing them from buying. And when I was busy, working through conversion optimization type of tactics and techniques and so forth, I got very much exposed to the insides and outsides of e-commerce as a space. Just because e-commerce is very ripe for CRO, A/B testing, and so on.
Big time.
And that's where my love for e-commerce started. And then I slowly transitioned over to email marketing, first for a B2B business. It was a music software, and straight after that I got connected to Monster about 2 years and 8 months ago. where I connected to Adam and Andrew, the two co-founders, and yeah, the rest is history. So that's kind of the progression over the years to where I am now. But I've dabbled in everything from paid to social to analytics, BI dashboards, setting up Lucas Studio dashboards, different API connections and syncings. So man, I've dabbled in everything.
Yeah, I
And
think
we're
I
all
think to be
designers. Remember, everybody's a designer, so even designing.
oh, absolutely. I think though to be to kill it in ecom today, you need to be that kind of you need to be the Swiss Army knife, and to have the SEO background fused with the CRO experience, and then to bring that into kind of more retention marketing. I think it's such a you have that army, that kind of breadth of skills, I suppose, that just allow you to kind of do the job at the highest level, I suppose.
On
You touched on, I suppose, coming to Magnet Monster about 2.5 years ago, and you touched on kind of more recent history. I suppose there has been some changes there at Magnet Monster recently.
Yes, that's correct. So I initially started as a hybrid person within the business. So I was a project manager on some of the client accounts, which is exceptional because I always say the person, doing the ground level work, they get to see the insides and outsides of an agency, the operations, the workings, as well as client accounts. The second part of the role was being the operational manager. So essentially reworking their processes, workflows, systems, you name it.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 years and 8 months in that particular field, which was excellent. And then recently, last year, December, starting November, December, we made a very big shuffle in how we've structured the different team players within the business. We used to run a pod or squad system. I know a lot of businesses out there do run on a pod system. It worked well for us to some extent, but of course we identified a lot of problems and challenges with that. When we did the reshuffling on the team structure, it was a natural thing for me to, of course, slot into the role of the CEO, the head guy. Yeah. Because Adam Kitchen, he's been running it. Adam, he's been running it for more than 5 years. He has a lot of skills and experience in creating digital products, content, digital products. The guy is exceptional in that area. So we also decided to push him into his strong areas even more. And that also allows the company to investigate and develop new areas of expansion. Because I'm a visionary, very passionate guy. So that was the big shift that we made.
Exciting. I mean, yeah, anyone who's in the retention space, I'm sure, has seen definitely Adam's post over the last number of years. I know myself, that's probably where I first started getting into really understanding the intricate weeds of how retention marketing worked. I mean, even going back probably 3-4 years ago, maybe even longer than that. My role at Shopify would have been helping people with their e-commerce marketing and general Shopify roadmap, but particularly on the e-coms, on the marketing side of things, you will be diving in and really trying to help them with the retention playbook to grow those brands. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a lot of my tips and tricks from Adam's LinkedIn posts back in the day, and probably still to this day, to be perfectly honest with you. So, it's really impressive to see the growth that has been there over the last number of years. I suppose, what do you think from, where Magnet Monster, what has allowed it to grow? Has that kind of building of social brand, personal brand, been at the center of how you guys have kind of grown so quickly over the last number of years?
Yeah, good question. I think the key thing to take into account here is, so when Magnet Monster started back in 2018, it was still a very underdeveloped industry, especially on the D2C side of things. So market penetration was, I don't want to say a little bit easier, but less crowded. So Adam and Andrew, they did see the opportunity in the market to obviously get a foothold, in the space. And then Adam started generating tons of content. Okay, running the content engine.
Mm.
We've all heard those tips and tricks. Your content engine. How can you feed the entire ecosystem? So he's very, very, very. It was a consistent focus for him. Inbound marketing, and it's paid off dividends massively because that also allowed him to build his personal brand. Alongside that, of course, spreading your content, your distribution channels, as well as the types from podcasts to articles to videos. There's loads of them. So we didn't just focus on one medium, which is also critical for the success of it. And then I would also say it also comes down to two other things. The first one is partnerships and relationships. We definitely proud in the fact that we have a couple of we have different types of partners. We've got technology partners like yourself that we partner with because we play in the same ecosphere. So ensuring that we all tap into each other's audiences and reach is critical for growth on two ends. We've got agency partners that we pair with, CRO people in the space, paid people, SEO people that build BI dashboards and so forth. And then the last one is our big followers, the community. They've been a key vehicle in getting our name out there in the industry. And we latch onto that because one of the things that I enjoy the most is training up and coming email marketing strategists that really wants to become the next best thing. The impact you leave with them is massive. So I absolutely enjoy that part, and we don't separate ourselves from that. Yeah, we super knowledgeable and experienced, but we want to share that over to people so we can spread that into the atmosphere. The other one is referrals from happy clients over the years. We get a lot of referrals from our happy long-standing customers, and that's a very nice achievement if you can grow based off of referrals. So that's kind of the mix of things that we've lashed onto to essentially grow the agency.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Sounds really, really exciting. You kind of touched on an interesting point there, I suppose, that when Adam and Andrew would have initially, started Magnet Monster, maybe the space wasn't as crowded. I think we can both agree that's not the case anymore. There's, there's tons of different retention marketing, email marketing agencies out there today. Some of them fantastic and some of them maybe not so fantastic. What separates the good from the bad agency? And just even going into your own service offering there at Magnet Monster, people, and I used to see this all the time with brands, they might think, email marketing is just firing out a campaign once a month and using the automated flows that are there, and email marketing, that's it, done. Whereas when you see a really, really dialed in operator, it's really core. You're digging into the weeds, and the cohort matrix is looking at you're looking at everything there. You're trying to optimize all of your campaigns, your flows. You're really digging into the unit economics of what actually works for you and your brand. I think so many people can often look for the cheapest option because it saves you money, but in fact, it actually costs you a ton of money. And I suppose if you were speaking to brand owners who were looking at, would say, the cheaper options are the very much the bottom of the barrel, if it would say, for want of a better word, of email marketers out there that are hoping to do this on a really, really low cost base. You are missing that, I suppose, that length and breadth of domain expertise that really would probably prevent your brand from really making the most of the data that they already have.
Yeah. Very, very interesting question, and a conversation we have, constantly. So I think there's essentially three prongs to this question. The first one is the different tiers of, the type of brands or services out there. Let's say the low entry level, let's call it conveyor belt type of account. You've got the mid guys, and you've got the whales, the really complicated brands. If you are a brand that is very entry level, I mean, your annual revenue is not hitting the millions, and you're an agency servicing those clients, of course, your skill level, doesn't have to be cutting edge, doesn't have to be the best in the market. Why? Because, you charge less. So, people can't expect you to be, the greatest on earth. So there's a massive market for those type of services, right? So you can be an excellent email marketer if you service those brands, and the value that you deliver is massive, because sometimes we know you can send a plain text email to your database and it can convert massively. So, the level of skill needed isn't that great. If you go more towards the mid tier or the whale complicated accounts, of course, that's a different ball game in itself. I'll give you a case study example. So we recently signed a massive footwear brand, like really massive, which is damn interesting and exciting. What separates the good from the bad is, how you can plug into the entire business, the entire ecosystem, and ensure that you're not an isolated channel or function to their entire stack. You need to be able to, integrate into all their stuff. I'm now talking about everything from like attribution challenges, having the fun conversations around attribution models. Very, very difficult conversations to have. And
Not very
if you're not
fun.
skilled, you know, if you're not skilled, and not knowledgeable, you cannot advise, you cannot join in on the conversation. You become a yes man, where if they say, we're going to go for a last, click or last touch attribution model and cool, you won't be able to defend your position or advise them. You're looking at, different touch points and timings, throughout the customer life cycle stages. That's very, very difficult. If you think about a footwear brand, how do you determine at what point, is someone ready to buy for a second time? It's not a, replenishable product, like a deodorant stick that, every 30 days you can. So if you don't have the skills and knowledge, you cannot join in on that conversations. You cannot talk about advanced segmentation. Other things also around reporting, analytics, really pulling different data points into a central system, talking to other departments, pay departments, talking about their customer support teams. We've had a very, very, very complicated jewelry. And I'm not always saying it's not always complicated brands. Sometimes it's very easy and it flies well. Your challenges just expands and deepens. We had a jewelry brand that had a serious problem with returns and refunds. Okay, it's been costing them serious money. How do you plug into that? How do you measure that? Those are all very, very complicated matters. So that's kind of what separates let's say, the good with the bad, is how can you plug that channel, your efforts, what you charge clients, how do you plug that into their business and A, save them money, B, make them money. That's all that matters really. That's kind of what separates the two, I would say, because it becomes a different ballgame in itself.
It's so interesting because we're obviously dealing with, so many different, mainly Shopify, but mainly e-commerce brands, I suppose, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And the amount of times we kind of dive in and we're chatting to the founder and you're kind of trying to understand how the retention strategy is linked to the acquisition strategy. And they're two different people who never talk to each other. So I think that's such a crucial thing to kind of double click on, almost to a certain extent, that, the retention is just as important as the acquisition. The acquisition needs the retention for the whole business to work as well. So they need to be kind of much more integrated than I suppose a lot of businesses currently have them. Of the businesses, I suppose, that come to you, is that kind of level of integration already there? I would say obviously it's going to be very, very different for every business, but on the average, is that kind of level of integration already there? Are most of them coming to you with that kind of, I suppose, disjointed feel between the acquisition and the retention strategies of the business?
Solid question. Like you say, it depends on many things. I think the biggest, let's call it, opportunity I see within this space is there's no shortage in tools. I mean, the tech stack market, you're talking about the Shopify app system or ecosystem. There's like millions of options out there. So a lot of the times, brands, they land on our doorstep. We do an audit on their account and we look at their tech stack because a lot of the things it is centralized on the technology. So yes, they've got all the tools in place, but in terms of the utilization of it, that's where brands fall short massively, just because there are so many strings and moving pieces. How do you plug it into your pay channel versus your email versus other channels, and how do you then basically sync all of it up? So that's a massive thing that we do see within the space. And then also, a lot of times there is tech stack bloat. We all know it. So clients are spending so much money in using tech stack pieces that they don't really utilize fully. Or what also happens is they bind themselves into an annual contract, and they've been burned and they can't get out. So that's kind of on that front. In terms of tools and approaches and retention marketing, the one thing that I constantly see over and over again, and I think it will be like this for the next few years, is people have a retention marketing problem, a repeat purchase revenue problem here. And everybody is running towards, tools, as the fix to that. Like, hey, can we use rebuy? Can we use repeat? Can we use a subscription tool to kind of fix our retention problem? Stop. It doesn't work. I mean, we've seen this countless of times. People jumping from SEO to recharge to loop just because they reckon it's going to solve their retention marketing problems. It doesn't. There's more to it.
So fix the product, not the tool.
Exactly. Fix the product and think about your customer support teams as well. On the money there.
Yeah, I think so. I think the customer support point is such an interesting one as well, because if you for whatever reason get onto a live chat with a customer, you won't remember if it's average, but if it's above average or really high, that sticks with you, I think. And I just think yes, you'll remember the product that you get whenever it gets delivered, but I think you do remember that kind of, I suppose, extra level of effort that the brand initially put in during that customer service interaction as well. So I think it's a really, really important point that a lot of brands miss.
And it's the industry that nails it down, but it's not really a fair apple to apple comparison, just because e-commerce is at scale where the tourism travel industry is a very one-to-one focus. In I don't know how big it is in the States or in the European markets, but yeah, in Africa, if you book an African safari, overnight stay at a lodge, of course, when you enter your room, they've got a little personal card with your name on it, and they know exactly your dietary requirements and restrictions, and when it's your birthday. So sometimes they rock up with a cake and they sing for you in the lodge and this and that. So very, very, very personal, touch. I think all D2C brands are trying to do that, but it's hard to do it at scale. So you are right. You want to leave a lasting impression. How do you do it at scale, with the different tools we have at hand? Because AI is now coming into play. AI is almost doing the opposite of being personal, but how do you do it at scale? So you are correct in saying that everybody wants, to leave that lasting impression.
Do you guys use your insights from brands that will say, like, obviously we were just talking about the service offering in general, like it's not strictly just email marketing, it's more of a retention play in general. Are you using your insights from, we'll say, some of the best performing brands with that highest repeat purchase rate to, we'll say, advise other brands on customer experience, customer support? What are the best guys doing really right, and how do we relay that message? Because I'm sure if you guys can consult and advise a brand on everything around the customer experience and the product, the customer journey, that massively aids your work when you're doing retention marketing for a big brand.
Yeah, to some extent we do. I mean, some of the touch points or the tactics that we implement to try and support that is, of course, is zero party data, just collecting better data, top of the funnel. So we can be better at, targeting, people according to their pain points, their goals, what they aspire to be, and so forth. So that's the very first thing that we advise brands to do. The other one is qualitative surveys, research, like gauging satisfaction of, in the product usage, with the company, with, if we install something like Wonderment, a tracking app, we can plug a lot of that into our efforts to, to fire off a message when there's a shipment delay, which equates to a customer support type of angle. I know Wonderment recently released a feature or function of their tool where if there's an issue with the order, you can, email 30 people at once and, get that resolved or attend to that. So that's all. It's not a direct retention marketing tactic in the sense of, hey, there's a flow or a campaign we send out to get them to purchase more, but it's these little touch points. And then you're also looking at, so when we do NPS surveys, for argument's sake, requesting reviews, of course, we've got the data to plug it back into Klaviyo. If someone, has a bad review, we plug it back into the system and we can retarget people, trigger, a follow-up message if they have a bad review. And the beauty about something like Klaviyo, for instance, is you can send out, notifications, emails to, like a gorgeous, to your customer support team. And then you can also render out within the email, you can render out, the customer's details, their zero-party data, what they've recently purchased, and so on. And then you can, ensure that the customer support teams, gets in touch with them. So these are all little touch points and tactics that, email, absolutely facilitates. And the beauty about this, let's call it the bittersweet thing about this is that it doesn't necessarily drive direct revenue. It's very hard to measure that,
Sure.
because everybody wants more revenue from email, but I don't always think of, the other side of email, which is a facilitator of these type of things. And we absolutely advise most brands to put this in play. Take, for instance, returns. When I log a return, what is my, post-return experience once I've logged a ticket? Am I, are they keeping, the communication going? So I know exactly where my order sits. If I send it over to them, I had to pay $20, to send the shipment back. You need to let me know that you've received it, you're looking into it. This is the next action step. Those are all email, SMS, facilitated type of vehicles. So yep, we advise clients in the short.
Brilliant. Really interesting. Some absolute nuggets there. So let's just say I'm a DTC brand. I'm operating on Shopify. I come to you guys and I want you to do my retention marketing. What's the first? So say for instance, I assume the first step is to carry out some kind of audit. If you were to pick 3 of the key performance indicators that you're looking for my Klaviyo account to determine, if it's in good health or if it's in terrible health, would you be able to kind of maybe go through maybe 2 or 3 of those kind of key pointers that you're looking for within an email audit for a new brand?
Absolutely. Good question. So firstly, the very first thing that we do within our audits is looking at list growth, your subscriber opt-ins. There's a massive gold mine of, data that you can collect from it, as well as growing your database. People always, we know DTC brands, and nothing against them. I would operate in the same way. They want to beat their current email database dead, with, repeat purchase type of prompts and messages. And they tend to forget about, top of the funnel. Like, you always need to fill the bucket from the top. So that's the very first thing that we look at. Now, the one, let's call it the constraint that I'm seeing within the industry is that people are very focused on their store and I have a pop-up on my store or the checkout, and that kind of drives my, subscriber list growth. No, people need to look outwards. Your social channels, co-marketing efforts, lead gen ads on Facebook, Meta, or wherever. So that's the one thing that we look at. And also the other challenge with list growth is, iOS 15 privacy settings, where people block, tracking scripts. So a lot of times, these opt-in forms don't trigger. And yeah, we want to respect people's, privacy and so on. But there's a ton of tools out there, the Little Data, Elevar, BlackRow, they all kind of try and, make these things possible. That's the very first thing that we look at. The second thing that we look at is if it's retention, if people come to us very much like, hey, I need to increase my repeat purchase revenue, then of course we absolutely look into flow automation, because that drives a ton of this. Now, flow automation, we can talk about flows within Klaviyo or Yotpo for the next 90 minutes. But a couple of areas that we look for, your post-purchase flows. What is that experience like? If it's a brand that is very reliant on product adoption and habit formation, people need to use the product in order to want to purchase again, we ensure that that post-purchase journey is very sound and solid. Habit formation messages, customer support check-ins, the list goes on, even making returns, easy and possible, and so forth. What we then do is we then also look at your replenishment flows. Now, again, we can talk about this one for years. Depending on your strategy, sometimes it's a subscription, product or business. Then we look at unpacking your subscription, flow or messaging integrations. Have you set up your upcoming order emails? Are you upselling in it, cross-selling in it? Have you set up a surprise and delight, touch point where, after, X amount of orders, we'll send you a little incentive or value add. I know Dira Dry used to do this with us where, so what they do is they encourage people to stay subscribed, and then at order 5, we only then give you some sort of a cashback or discount. Okay. So you kind of dangle the carrot. Is it an ugly marketing tactic just to get people to, constantly stay subscribed? We market
what is ugly.
What is ugly? What's not ugly? It works. My wife does a loyalty program work. I hate them. My wife only buys if there's a loyalty system. So they do work.
I think when you're working in marketing, you just become susceptible to any offer ever. You just don't trust any offers for the right reason. So I'm the same as you, but similar thing at home, I suppose.
That's right. You start to hate your own type. That's very true. And then the third one, of course, so flows, we can go on for days. The third one is also, I think reporting analytics is also an area that is severely lacking. I know you guys have a super product that allows people to plug their unit economic data, into the system, all the different channels. I cannot tell you the amount of times, and D2C brands, for those people listening, there's no clear dashboards in place. Like if you ask them, hey, can you please give us access to some BI dashboard? They usually don't have anything, or they've got some sheet sitting somewhere, or they've got something that's stitched up by some, cousin that did it, for a cheap job. So that's the one issue. Also, not using the data correctly. The tools out there, like your tool, StoreHero, Lifetimely, Peel, there's many out there. And I know, of course, sometimes it's just another tool that just spits out raw data. But you need to understand some of your retention metrics, your cohorts. What is the typical buying behavior of someone buying this sunscreen? So if I buy this sunscreen, what is the pattern of people buying the second product once they've bought the sunscreen? If you can understand that connection, your upselling, cross-selling becomes a little smarter, because we see a lot of brands, the mismatch in, replenishment messaging it's a very big mismatch. Like, you've purchased this, now go buy this. Like, no, dude. I mean, the complementary of that is just a horrible pairing. The challenge
What
comes
surprises?
in.
Sorry, go on. Sorry,
Yep.
go on.
Go
What
ahead. Sorry,
surprises me?
I talk a lot.
What surprises me sometimes about some of the tool, just on the topic of the tooling there, you mentioned StoreHero and a couple of the other ones there as well, is that like you and I understand this because my family business is at home is an e-commerce business for years, and as an e-commerce business owner, you don't have time to become a data nerd and actually understand the nuances of every single metric and how this fluctuation of this metric means this is really positive or it's actually terrible. So you can put these tools in place, but I actually think that there is, and you guys sound like you do it, but there's a big it's not really the tool that helps you, it's actually the comprehension of what the tool is saying and the interpretation of that data, and then being able to use that to inform your decision making is where the real value from the tool comes from. It's not really from the tool itself, and I know I'm saying that as a tool provider, but it is from the interpretation of the data that's there. You might look at a StoreHero dashboard and so much your client, but yet you see green flags everywhere and they're terrified to do anything else with their business. And it's a really informed decision. Okay, yes, you need the tool in place, but it's the informed decision making on what's actually being presented to you, I think, is where the real value is.
Yeah, you are nailing it on the head here. That interpretation part, analysis part is the missing link. Luckily, we know, StoreHero, a lot of the other platforms do have a machine learning, system behind it that gives you, easy snapshot highlights of, best performers or spikes and anomalies. And they also give, clear suggestions on, improvements. I know you guys have a what's working, snapshot. So it's very easy for someone to just quickly consume. Oh, wow. Okay. I can see the best performers, the areas that's really running well, as well as what could be improved. Like, oh, Facebook, AOV decreased by 70%. Yeah. So go investigate that part. So to some
Absolutely.
extent, I think the market has, plugged some of that, but it's not
So,
always an out of the box thing. Yep.
yeah, no, it's still, I think that everybody still has so much to learn, both from the brand and the agency side of things. I still think there's a big lack of clarity and focus on the right metrics to really drive a business forward, to spot both green and red flags as quick as possible. One thing I'd like to kind of bounce off of you, Wiehan, is I suppose Klaviyo being in the news a lot recently, IPO, they've introduced a new service offering. I even know, like, just going back to 2019, MailChimp was the dominant, I think, if I'm not mistaken. MailChimp around 2018-19 was still the dominant email marketing app within the Shopify App Store. Obviously, there was some mishap there, and Klaviyo tended to take over. Klaviyo remained pretty dominant in that space for probably, whatever, 3-4 years, pretty much untouched, to be honest with you. I think MailChimp were out of the App Store, and there was nobody else really coming close. It was the default if you were setting up a Shopify store, and that's what has allowed them to IPO and do so well in the last number of years. That being said, and something I'd love to kind of hear your opinion on, in the last probably 6 months to a year, we've started to see the re-emergence of MailChimp again. We're starting to see Yotpo reorientate their whole service offering, and their pricing looks really, really attractive. And then you see SendLane really starting to take off as well. And the once almost monopolistic view that Klaviyo would have had on the DTC landscape maybe isn't there right now. Eager just to hear your take on it from somebody actually in the space.
Hot topic at the minute. Look, okay, I mean, Klaviyo, there's so many pronunciations of it. We, exactly like you've stipulated, they have been the dominant, ESP now for quite some time. I've recently seen someone share a market share report on LinkedIn where they've highlighted the distribution share of, or the uptake of, different Shopify apps. And then I think the
Jeremy
first one
Horowitz.
was like, Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like
Yeah.
Cloudflare or like, one of the, and then the tracking pixel, Facebook pixels, and then Klaviyo was pretty much just, you know, underneath, those very high utilized products for good reason. Okay. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the amount of new development that happens, within the Klaviyo ecosystem. The one challenge with the market is that if I'm a D2C brand, and we see this constantly, is I see the platform and I see my invoices, the billing, what it costs me. I don't see the nuts and bolts of it. And then I make a emotional decision because damn, I see, this platform, could be cheaper and this one could be better. When you go into the very nuts and bolts of it, you can kind of see why, these platforms do have, that market share. Now, Klaviyo will always remain a big one for us just because they are definitely at the forefront of, innovation and so forth. I mean, they've recently launched, again, you can sync data back to Shopify, for instance. It used to be only one directional. It's now bi-directional. I mean, just something like that, opens up massive value, for D2C brands. Because imagine you collect custom properties and custom values within Klaviyo, and you can push it back to Shopify to now slice and dice on that area. Okay, it's beautiful stuff. Okay, and people don't see the value up front because they merely look at the billing of it. The problem is every channel is underutilized to most extents. In terms of other players entering the market, Sendlane, Yotpo, and so on, I definitely think there's a big slice of the pie that they can grab hold of. Some of the reasons why they are doing it is pricing, like fair pricing. Nothing against Klaviyo here or whoever else. We service all ESPs, okay? Is fair pricing, easy pricing to understand, pricing that is up and down. You can scale your business without, your billing, going chaotic and haywire. A good example is Yotpo, for instance, is you only pay for the amount of emails and SMS that you send out. If your active profile count grows, they don't charge you for that. They only charge you for the amount of emails. So if you've got a database of 2 million people and you only send to your VIP customers, that could be 10K emails that you send out, you're only going to pay for the 10K, so it's in other words,
Makes
you
sense.
can use Yotpo to collect info and data and behavior patterns around the 2 million, profiles. In other words, you only pay, but you only pay for the emails you send. So it could be it's a very cheap system if you, configure it correctly. Then the send lanes, they are, looking at, filling the gap on, customer support, your value adds. Like you can, email us now and we'll respond within 3 minutes time. So they're kind of latching onto that part of it.
Is it
Um,
3
but
minutes? Something about it. So, I was wondering if that was a message they had put out. I know they talk a lot about customer support, but
yeah.
I hadn't seen that.
I haven't seen it myself yet, but I know Jimmy has been speaking about, like, you'll see on his
Twitter.
we all know that post that goes out like every single Sunday or something. Jimmy,
Yeah,
you need to refresh your creative there.
I have to say I do enjoy it. It's like the David versus Goliath, but I do enjoy that Sunday afternoon post when I see it. But okay, really interesting. Just obviously, you guys are at the forefront of some of the most exciting DTC brands that are operating in the Shopify ecosystem. Like obviously, like has that the monopoly you guys I'm assuming would have had with primarily on only Klaviyo accounts. Has that changed, or is it still all Klaviyo? Are you starting to see the outposts come in? Have you got any Sendlane or any Mailchimp clients coming back on board?
Very predominantly still Klaviyo. Also, the other thing is we've built our skill set and knowledge around Klaviyo, okay, for
Yeah.
years now. But Yotpo is definitely, a big focus for us, especially this year. We've recently signed one of our clients over to Yotpo Full Suite. subscriptions, reviews, email, SMS, the entire package. Just because, I mean, Yotpo has been, nothing against Yotpo. I love the guys over at Yotpo. They have been a little bit underwhelming on the email SMS front in terms of integrations, functions. But I've been part of the team that reviewed the roadmap and also user studies. Of course, being an agency, where they've asked us, what is missing from the platform, what do we need, to function, and the roadmap is something else. They, for instance, a pop-up. So when you capture, someone's, opt-in email address, a lot of the time, or currently, the metrics are usually, form submission rate and very almost, let's call it, superficial type of metrics,
Yeah.
where Yotpo is saying, hang on a second, we're going to plug metrics that matters. So they've plugged in AOV as a metric to their, opt-in forms. Now it opens up a new game where, damn, what if we test certain, A/B tests in our pop-up to try and increase AOV? Now you can measure that a little differently. So there's definitely going to be a bit of a shift, and also pricing wise, it's also great because if you take all the Yotpo services, you've got SMS, email, subscription, reviews. So now you kind of get rid of some of your third-party tools, and you've got unified data, which is a value add in itself.
Huge.
Yeah. So big
Huge
shift
value
happening.
add. Exciting. Listen, Wiehan, we're going to leave it there for today. If anyone wants to get in contact with yourself, or any of the guys at Magnet Monster, where can they contact you?
Absolutely. A couple of areas, so magnetmonster.co.uk is, of course, the website. You can request a free audit via one of our landing pages, and then we're happy to do a Klaviyo audit for you if you on Klaviyo. You can also get in touch with me via my social, LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn, so go look for me there. And if you want to get in touch with any of our other team members, Adam Kitchen, again on social media, Bogdan, there's a couple of us there. We'll be there to answer any questions, or if you want to come on board and we should service you, get in touch.
Brilliant. I'll leave the links for your own profiles, Adam's, and the rest of the Magnet Monster links in the show notes. But listen, Wiehan, really, really appreciate you coming on. Really, really interesting chat about all things retention here today, and look forward to chatting to you again very, very soon.
Thanks for having me, brother, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks,
Cheers,
man.
Thomas.
See you.
Bye.